to know the artist behind the epic melodies, songs, and beats. Celebrating the best new music from around the world. This is the A State of Trance podcast.
Hey, what's up? My name is Ruben Ronde and welcome to a new A State of Trance podcast with this week's special guest all the way from Sheffield in the United Kingdom, Adam Ellis. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good, thank you.
That's nice to hear. Finally have you in the studio again after 4, 5, 6 years, I think something like that.
Yeah, we figured out it was 5 years, I think.
Yeah, because the last time you were here, you were for the launch of Illicit, of course. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, of course, as well. But first, we're going to start off with the question of questions. How did you start off in making music or in DJing? What sparked your passion?
It's an easy question to answer, to be fair. So growing up, listening to music, my mum and dad were massive Queen fanatics, the band Queen. And yeah, I just absolutely love a guitar. And I always just wanted space to play the guitar. So when I was about 13 years old, I got a guitar and I kind of taught myself to a fairly good level. And then everything changed in about 2006 when... Actually, Harry Fowler, who works here,
the A&R manager,
he was like, "Oh, hey, listen to this track, like this album by Tiesto." I was like, "Who's Tiesto?" He was like, "Just listen to the album." So anyway, listen to the album, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this music? This is like incredible." Up until that point, I'd kind of liked clubland kind of music. Do you know, like Scooter, the Logical Song, things like that. And trance to me just seemed like a much more serious version without discrediting the other genres.
Of course.
Anyway, started going to a few club nights in Sheffield, Gatecrasher before it burned down. Completely got hooked on the music and decided that I would like to go and do a season in Ibiza. So I was 20 years old, got a one-way ticket to Ibiza. Saw Armin van Buuren every week at Cream. He back then he had his own Armada night every Tuesday.
Yeah, it's Amnesia.
And then there was every Thursday there was Cream. And what else was there? I did some techno shows, but it was the trance shows that really got me.
And stuff like that.
Yeah, Cocoon,
Cox's Night, I think.
Yeah, Space, Pasha, things like that, S-Parodies. But yeah, anyway, I came back home in October 2007. I was like, I'm going to ditch the guitar, which I've been learning for like 10 years or something. And I got pretty good. And I started, I remember I went to a shop, I bought some little speakers, some Edison speakers, got a cracked copy of FL Studio, which obviously you shouldn't do now. But yeah, I couldn't afford to do it normally, so did what I could, and yeah, just started making music, and then obviously got all the right software and purchased software properly, and yeah, it took me 5 years of hard work, graft. I gave up a few times, as you do, but the passion was always there, and eventually I had a big track on Brian Kearney's label, and that's where it all kicked off, In
2013. I want to go back because this was something very interesting, because I noticed this as well. We were having some food earlier, and Harry Fowler, he's the A&R in this company, came walking in, and I was like, hey, you guys are friendly. Yeah. So you guys were friends already way before anything, like you were schoolmates or something like that?
Me and Harry been friends since school, yeah. And as I said, we grew up together, and we were both into music. And then he actually went to see Tiesto in Bournemouth in about 2006.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was into guitar music and a little bit of clubland kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, one day he was just like, "Hey, listen to this track," and this CD.
Which track was it?
Oh gosh, there was actually a defining track, but it wasn't a Tiesto track. So I listened to the album. I mean, he said, "Hey, there's a night on in Sheffield, and there's a guy called Mario Picotto playing."
Yeah.
Never heard of him. So anyway, I was at work one day, and on my lunch, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to listen to some Mario Picotto." Now, back then there wasn't Spotify, and I can't remember how I listened to it. I think I must have downloaded it off some website
or something like that.
Something like you did back in the day. And there was this. I downloaded 3 or 4 tracks, but there was one track that stood out, and it was Komodo.
Oh yeah.
And I'd never heard anything like that before. Like the melody, the beats. So anyway, I was like, "Yeah, let's go and see this guy." And I went. So it was. When was it? It must have been like March 2007. Went to Gatecrasher, saw Mario Picotto, the most insane, best night of my life. Never been to a club like that.
The funny thing is, I remember those days very well. I think Mario Picotto was maybe a little bit early already. I think he had Komodo and Proximus was probably 2002, something like 2001. And I remember the same thing that I heard his music. I was like, I want to hear this guy. I went to Trans Energy, where he was playing on the main stage, and everybody was expecting Komodo, Proximus, all these tunes, Back to Cali. and he started playing. He played banging techno.
Yeah, I've seen them
Insane.
videos.
I remember those BXR Nucleus days. Those were fantastic days.
Did you like the techno?
Yeah.
Yeah, you liked it. So we actually went to Trance Energy after. I'll tell you about that after. But yeah, so we went to this night, this Gatecrasher night, and that night changed my life forever. From that night, I ended up like I said, deciding that I wanted to go and explore this music properly, and I wanted some kind of experience. All my friends, they were 20 years old, just working, just normal jobs, like trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
And I've always been a bit of an extrovert, and I thought, I'm just gonna get a one-way flight to Ibiza and just spend a summer like educating myself.
What did you do that whole summer? Just go to parties?
My mum lent me a fair bit of money.
Imagine doing that in these days.
Yeah.
A whole summer in Ibiza would cost you like
God.
100,000 euros at least.
So yeah, and I just did side jobs, whatever I could, honestly, like bar work. I was saying earlier that I dressed up as a stormtrooper. We was talking about, So there was a club called Eden. Yeah. And they have people walking
San
around.
Antonio.
Yeah, that's it. You have people walking around in all sorts of costumes, and so you just get gigs like dressing up as a Star Trooper. You get 50 euros a night or whatever. And ended up doing a summer there. And like I said, all I did was like I went to every single Tuesday and every single Thursday for about 3 months, and it was just a magical time. And when I came back to England, I was like, I just had this like desire, this deep desire to learn how to make trance music.
So you ditched your guitar and you started making music.
As guilty as it felt, because I'd grew up my entire life like idolizing Brian May from Queen, and any kind of guitar music.
Did you ever grab back the guitar, like in the last few years?
Funnily enough, I did, and I was dreadful. Like I used to, I used to be really good. Like I used to, like if I could like really like play the guitar, and it's fascinating how fast you forget it. Yeah. It just like I didn't like it.
So muscle memory.
Yeah, like so. I could have probably got back into it if I tried, but yeah, it was one of them things. Like it was like a bit of a fad. I thought I'd try it. Bought a guitar and then realised I ain't got time for this. My fingers were hurting, and
So back to Fruity Loops it was.
Yeah, well, no, I've actually Logic now. Yeah. So tried Fruity Loops for I think a year. Made a few tracks on that, but then.
Okay. So when you started making music in 2007, then or 2007. So you first started off with Fruity Loops, and then you switched to Logic.
Yep.
You mastered Logic for 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
And then out of nowhere, you came with. Well, of course, Napalm Poets. Did you release some stuff before that as well, or was that the first one?
No, so I'm really fortunate in the sense that I tried to release stuff, but I wasn't really good enough to get on the labels. So it came to a point after about 3 years of making music, I had this mindset. And looking back in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best mindset. No. But I was like, right, I'm not gonna finish another track until it's going to get signed to a major label. Yeah. And I think I procrastinated and I wasted a lot of time on this one track. That track did actually end up being Napalm Poet, funnily enough. But I spent 2 years on the same track, and it wasn't until one of my friends, Alan Morrow, you've probably heard of him.
Yeah, of course.
He said to me, look, like he didn't say as polite as this, like in his own loving way. He said, just finish the track, like get it done, move on. So I finished it. And finishing that track, at that point I'd been producing for 5 years, and something just clicks. Like when I finished the track, it's the first time I finished a track in 2 years. Yeah, something just happened. I can't explain what it was. I don't know if I gained confidence or if it was just the right time. Yeah. Well, I then went on to write the Bullet in the Gun remix, and Paul Oakenfold managed to get hold of that, and through the help of John Askew, who I believe was managing Paul Oakenfold at the time, we got an official release, and that shot me into like the UK trance scene. I did a lot of self-promotion, messaged about 500-600 people saying, hey, got this new track, any chance you could share it, no hard feelings if not. And I'm a big believer that you've got to go and things don't come to you. You have to push the boundaries and you have to ask people for
100%,
things. Yeah. So anyway, that did really well. And then I went back and revisited Napalm Poet, and I kind of remixed my own track. So I took all the main parts, got a vocal, and yeah, that track blew up, and that was the start of everything, really.
How did you get in touch? Because you signed it with Brian Kearney, of course. And of course, it was his massive smash in the summer of 2013. How did you get in touch with Brian about releasing this one?
Do you know what? I don't actually know. I think he was an easier accessible DJ to get in touch with back then. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you could get in touch with him now. I'm sure, but back then, Brian, he was a smaller artist than what he is now. So obviously, an incredible artist now. And I think it was just a case that he had Facebook, and I dropped him a message, And I was like, he seemed like a really nice guy. He released the kind of music that I was making, and I sent him this track. And funnily enough, he was actually playing his very first A State of Trance, I believe, like a couple of weekends later. And he was like, I love it. I just want to test it out. I'm going to play it at A State of Trance. And yeah, he played it at A State of Trance, and he messaged me back after. He said, yeah, definitely want to sign it. And I think back then the quality wasn't, I don't believe the quality of the production was where it should be to be on the major labels. I think it just scraped by because of the engineering. But if I listen back to that track, don't get me wrong, it's not the worst in the world, but if you can compare it to my sound now, it's a lot more raw.
I think that's an unfair comparison, because I do the same thing with when you listen to your old stuff, you're like, this is so bad, it sounds so bad, but it's just different technology, different times. So
producer curse,
and also
right?
but also like every day you learn as a producer. Like every day there's something that you're like, oh shit, this is cool. I didn't know that you could do that. Like the first things that I guess a monumental moment for every producer is when you find out how to sidechain, or that your low end should just be in mono. Those kind of small things is that you don't realize that until a certain point, and everything that's produced before that point is just shit.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I remember my friends asking me years ago, like, oh, how's producing going? I was like, oh my God, I've learned this thing called sidechaining, and also I've learned something called automation.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, I don't know what that is, but it sounds cool. I was like, yeah,
it's amazing, dude. It's not cool, it's amazing. So yeah, I get that feeling. So I don't think it's a good comparison.
Yeah, fair enough. That's nice to hear.
And when I hear tracks like Nippon Poet, it brings you back to a certain era, I guess, that you would hear that track in every single set because everybody was playing it. So you don't have to focus on production quality per se, I think.
As long as it's at a certain point, then really the music does the job, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. From Napalm Poet, you had several releases on Carnage.
Because of Napalm Poet, I had a lot of big DJs get in touch with me. One of the biggest at the time was Menno de Jong, and he had a track called Creatures of the Night. Yeah. And I remixed that, and I remember it was such a compliment. I messaged my manager at the time, and I said, Menno de Jong has asked me to remix one of his tracks. And he said, snap his hand off, whatever it is. Because obviously, Menno is a big name, big DJ. Yeah. So yeah, remix that. Menno absolutely loved it. That was a big track. And then I was always consistent. I never, if I'm being truthful, I never had like massive hits like consistently. I had some big tracks, but I always had like good tracks that people would play. Yeah. I just built on that momentum really, and. I just did my best. Some tracks did okay, some didn't. You know, it is as a producer.
That's just how it is. Sometimes the tune that you love the most ends up being the worst performing track of all. Yeah. So it is what it is, I guess, sometimes. Yeah. And then, of course, in 2017, you started your own label, Illicit.
Yep.
That was something that you did for 3 years and you decided to discontinue?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to do that, it was just a dream. Like to be in control of your own music, I thought was a really good idea. Yeah. But I am a stickler for quality. Yeah. If I have to do something, I have to do it 100%. I can't, like, even the smallest of details, if I don't do it right to the best of my ability or what I know it should be, it just doesn't sit right for me. Mm-hmm. So the artwork, I was paying like quite a lot of money for each release. Yeah. And then I was working, it was a sub-label of Raz Nitsan Music. So I was liaising with Raz. Yeah. And then it was just really tough. It took up a lot of time. And I tried to kind of like, I tried to help people. I tried to get people into help. But I guess I say this in like a sincere way, but I'm a bit of a control freak when it comes to music in my career. Yeah. And like, I know what I want. So trying to rely on other people to get things how you want it to be, it wasn't working for me at that time. And I know earlier we mentioned that sometimes you do just have to branch out. And
I think what you're saying right now, the mindset that you have it's typical for an artist that you want to be a control freak and be in charge of everything you're doing. But if you're listening right now and you're an aspiring artist, it's not a bad thing to ask help of people. Sometimes. I still have the same problem sometimes that I'm like, yeah, but this is not what I want. You know what? I'll just do it myself. Yeah. And then you lock yourself out again. But in the meantime, you should be making music.
Yep, that's it, yeah.
And other people have other qualities that also want to help. Yeah. I'm saying this to myself as well right now because that's just how it is. So I guess if you want to continue Illicit, it's not wrong to ask someone in your environment also to help you out.
It was just taking too much time, and I felt like, as we was talking earlier, I'm a tutor. My main job is as a tutor to teach people. And I just felt like it was taking up too much of my time. And some clients kind of messaged me and said, hey, since the label has started, I kind of feel like maybe the attention to me on this course has dropped, and for me that is just not acceptable.
Yeah.
These clients pay money to be talked about, and it's my moral obligation to give them the absolute best I can. So if anything got in the way of that, like, it was just a no for me. So I decided to discontinue it. Look, I'd been there, I'd done it, I did it to the best of my ability. Every release I enjoyed, every release had good artwork, it had a great YouTube video. I did it right, and I didn't want to continue the label. I could have just like used like stock images for artwork and stuff like that, and I could have like downgraded things. But for me, like I said, I want to do something, I want to do it 100%.
Yeah.
So I just decided to like let it go and just focus on my clients, and also making music. Just one last thing as well. Armin actually had a track called Control Freak, right?
Yeah.
And I remember in an interview, he said that track was about him being a musical control freak. Yeah. So I guess it's in all of us as producers.
It is, but I think Armin was one of the first ones that actually let go and got in people, including myself in 2006, that he was like, hey, State of Trance is becoming too much of work. I can't do it anymore. You know?
Yeah, well, if he didn't have that, if he wasn't smart enough to make that decision, ultimately, A State of Trance would not have carried on growing, right?
No, because I think in his number one DJ Mag days, it would have been impossible to make a show by yourself.
Yeah.
At least that's what I think.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something, because you have your one-to-one mentor sessions. Tell us, how did that start?
So that started, I did Napalm Poet.
Yeah.
Did Bullet in my Gun, did Napalm Poet. And at that time, I blew up in the UK trance scene. And you know, it's like everyone, like in the trance scene, a lot of people want to be producers. There's a lot of bedroom producers, like I was for many years. I actually still am a bedroom producer. I've got a studio in one of my bedrooms. Yeah. It's a cool studio, but it's a bedroom. But yeah, people kind of would message me and say, "Oh, Adam, like, love this new track. Like, is there any chance you could maybe give me some advice on this track, or how did you do the bass?" And my first instinct was obviously to help. I love helping people out. Like, I really get a lot of joy from helping people out. Mm-hmm. So I would always give them advice, but I've got quite an entrepreneur. I'm not going to say this right. An entrepreneurial type of brain.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought, hey, I'm happy to help these guys out, but if it's a case where maybe I could do a lesson with them and go into depth about it, something I've not got time to do otherwise. I started kind of doing lessons and just charging like a really low amount. And it got to the point where I realized at that time how much I was earning in a job I hated. I'd done 3 years at university, got a degree in musical engineering, went and lived in Ibiza for a few years, came back, was 25 years old, and I was like, I can't keep going to Ibiza. I need to try and get a career.
Yeah.
So I was in sales. I couldn't get a job in music, even though I got a bachelor's, BA Hons in music. So I was doing sales. And it was dreadful, and it's like something out of a movie. At this time, I started getting quite a lot of tuition work, and one day I was working. I used to sell energy in like supermarkets.
Yeah.
And one day, someone sent me a video of Paul Oakenfold playing my track "Bullet in My Gun." Mm-hmm. It's like Ministry of Sound to like, I don't know, 2,000 people, and like I realized that I could quit my job and pretty much earn the same amount of money doing tuition. So I spoke to my family about it and said, look, I want to follow my dreams in music. And you know what a family are like, they love you. They've got your best interest. They were like, look,
but you cannot dream.
Yeah, they were like, you're great at music, but don't give this up. You know, music's a hobby for you. But I ignored their advice. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate and grateful to say that like that's the last time I ever worked for anyone else but other than myself. And that was in about March 2014. So I've been doing it full time now for what?
For a decade also.
Yeah. And the business has changed so much. At first I used to just do one-off lessons where people would come to me, bring their track. But I soon realized that you don't really see many tangible results from that. So what I do now is I run a development course. So I designed what's called a 10-step guide. And it's basically 10 steps on how to make music my way. You can make music 1,000 different ways. This is just my way. So yeah, people sign up and they follow the course. They have me as their mentor, and yeah, it's achieved some really good success. As I was saying earlier, In Oblivion, who's just had a Beatport #1 with his I forget the track now. I should know really, but he'll forgive me. But yeah, he's just had a Beatport #1 on Armada. And we've had lots of other success as well. And if people are dedicated and if you put in the time and they're able to listen and take the constructive feedback.
If you allow me, I'm going to jump back a little bit.
Please do, yeah.
Because something interesting that you said is that you gave up your work. You talked about it with your family. And I think that's I guess that's a monumental moment also in the career of a lot of people, because most people are like, okay, they think rationally. They're like, okay, you're right. I shouldn't. This dream that I have is silly. Then I won't succeed in doing that. But what's the worst that can happen?
Well, the worst that could have happened is that the worst that could have happened is I could have listened to them. That's the worst, and I would have never done this.
Yeah, but
the worst that could happen in terms of following my dreams is it didn't work out, and I went back and carried on doing sales.
That's the thing.
Yeah, it's the best thing I ever did. Like I remember the moment vividly. It was my mum, my girlfriend at the time, and my best friend, and we all said, "Look, sounds a good idea, but like you should probably focus on something a bit more serious." And I went with my gut, and you should always go with your gut. And like you said, look, the worst that could happen is it didn't work out, and you go back to it,
and you find a new job.
But it did work out, and it's the best decision I've ever made, because it's given me incredible opportunities. Like I'm sat now in Holland in an incredible studio speaking to you guys, and I'm on A State of Trance and on the podcast, and it all links back to that one moment. And I'm just so thankful that I had the balls to ignore people that love me and just go with my gut. And if anyone's listening to this and you are a budding producer, like Ruben said, what's the worst that can happen? Give it a go. If you've got an idea, if it's sustainable to some capacity, give it a go. And if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to what you were doing before.
Exactly.
You've got to take risks in this life. If you don't take risks, you will not get anywhere.
You only live once. And the thing is that a lot of people that have been in your shoes and they actually chose to pursue with what they were doing, or not pursuing their dreams, but they just continue what they're doing and put away their dreams. And suddenly you're 50 years old and you think, I was at this moment in my life that I had the opportunity to make my dreams come true.
Yeah, imagine if you didn't do that, you'd be so upset with yourself.
Yeah.
Like you've only got one life, and a lot of people seem to live to work, whereas life should be about working to live.
Exactly.
See people working 70 hours a week. They might be saving money or whatever. It might be different if you've got family to provide for, but I'm a big believer in you need to work so you can live your life. You shouldn't work all the time and not live your life. You know what I mean?
But that's also interesting that you say, because you probably work more and harder than anyone having a regular job, because
people
you
see
do
it like
what,
that. People, my friends, friends like banter. I don't know what the banter's like in Holland.
Oh, you do a little bit of music. It's whatever. Yeah.
You're like, you press a few buttons. Like, what they don't see is the hardest part about my job is dealing with people. Like people are, how can I say this? People are interesting. Everyone is very different, and you've got to be really good with people, and you've got to have a lot of empathy and understanding. And as nice as I think I might be, you're going to clash with people. It's human nature.
Yeah.
For the longest time, like I really struggled with understanding that I can't get on with everyone. I thought I could get on with every person.
It's impossible.
But even if you're the nicest guy in a room, you will. Some people just don't take to you, and it's just life. But the hardest part of my job is the people, dealing with the people. The second part is like getting people to trust you, because even when people are paying you to be their mentor, you give them advice, and sometimes
they don't want to hear the advice.
But what I always say is, they pay me to tell them not what they want to hear, but what they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And some people, but some people can't take that criticism. And thankfully, there are many people that can take that criticism. And generally speaking, they're the ones that go on and actually, get the most from a course and go and sign the tracks with the major labels.
I'm going to sound like a boomer right now, but is that do you foresee like in the future that you have Gen Z students that really can take any criticism? Do you already notice that it's harder for people in a certain age group that they can take feedback better than other ones?
If I'm being completely honest with you, I have clients aged from 20 up to 60, men and female. And there's no correlation between age and being able to take or not take feedback. Some young guys are great, some old guys are not so great, and vice versa. So thankfully, it doesn't seem like that's an issue right now. The only worry I have with this business is that it's just like, how long are people going to want to learn trance music?
Yeah.
Am I going to be 60 years old? And like, I'm 36 now. So how long can I keep doing this job for? And that, if I'm being honest with you, sat here being like sincere with you, that is always at the back of my mind. But I have to just think back. Trance is massive right now. Trance is alive. I've been doing this job for the last 10 years. So hopefully I can do it for the next 10 years. And I have to just be wise with my investments and, you know, spending my money the right way.
That's right. And you say that you have every course has 10 steps that you're going through. Does it mean it's like 10 lessons and then it's just you move on, or is it something that continues?
So how it generally speaks is that I offer a 1 month trial, and it's a paid trial. But if you're not happy with the trial, and if it's not for you, because the course isn't for everybody, then there's a money back guarantee. But then after that, you start with 10 steps. And the 10 steps, it's a 12-month course, and we try to get at least one track done per year. Some clients do an hour a month, some do 4 a month. So the whole idea is just to try and work through a guide one step at a time with me approving each section. So it's kind of hard to explain like in a little bit of a podcast, but yeah, you have 10 steps, you follow it, I approve each section or I don't approve it. And you message me via email every day. You have your lessons once a week, twice a week. And the idea is just to make a track from start to finish with my feedback along the way, following the guide to the best of your ability. And it's quite a
intensive.
It can be intensive. Some people don't like how rigid it is.
Yeah.
It can be methodical. Some people would literally hate the idea of making music in a methodical way. Yeah. But I have clients that literally have got kids, they've got a job, they need to maximize their time. And this course for them is brilliant because it's just literally, it's all laid out. You know exactly what you need to do. There's videos for each single step of the way. Yeah. You have me to message 24 hours a day. You then have your lesson every week, every 2 weeks or whatever. And it's just a way for people to really be efficient. It's a very efficient way of working, but it's not for everyone. Some people like literally hate the idea of it being so rigid. You know, we're creatives at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Some people can't follow a course. They have to just do what comes. And I always say to new clients, look, just be prepared that it might not be for you. And that's why try it, see what you think. And then if you're happy, you can move forward and we'll go.
Do you have students that are working together right now as well?
Yeah, a lot of students collab. So people work together and
it's like a little community as well.
Do you know what? That's what I always say. I've got a community. I have a private Facebook group. Yeah. There's around 70 members in it, and it's really a community. And people post very positive stuff, from things like asking questions to sharing like their releases, sharing discounts on software.
Oh yeah.
So it's just a nice little community. 5 to 10 posts a day, and a lot of positivity. And then you get me doing my inspirational quotes and my videos, and it's my job to keep people like on the ball. Unfortunately, when it comes to making music, a lot of people, it doesn't go the way they want. You get a bit disheartened, and you have to. I've been there. This is the thing. I've been there. I've given up before. 3 times I gave up, but the passion for the music always got me back into it. But I gave up 3 times before I actually made it until I achieved that professional sound. So it's my job to kind of keep these guys motivated and essentially mentor them.
Yeah, because at a certain point, I remember that you posted it as well, that you retired as a DJ.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. Why did you make that decision to retire as a DJ? And now you're sort of coming back with some shows.
If for me, I pride myself on being honest, and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and people can ask me anything. And as long as I'm professional about my answers and don't discredit people, I feel like I can be completely honest. And the honest truth of the matter is, it just wasn't fulfilling me anymore. Mm-hmm. I broke through a scene, and I had it in my head, like because how fast I broke through a scene. I had it in my head that I'd be able to make like a really good living touring the world as a full-time DJ. And look, unfortunately, for whatever reason, I made a lot of mistakes, a bit of bad luck, a little bit of things like certain labels not particularly liking my sound.
And also a misconception that there, like, to be really honest, there's not a lot of, especially trance artists that can make a living out of touring, because touring costs a lot of money.
Not only that, like we were saying earlier, it's personally bad for my mental health. Yeah. I don't like the traveling. I don't like the being alone, and it messes my mental health up. And a lot of politics. There was a lot of things, a lot of mistakes I made. There was a lot of things that happened which I felt wasn't fair to me. But look, in hindsight, I look back at it, and I did retire from DJing, and I've tried to come back a little bit, but I've kind of realised that Like I'm very happy with what I've got. And, but yeah, for the longest time I was jaded about the fact I didn't make it. But the way I kind of look at it is, football?
Yeah.
You've got your Premiership footballers, and then you've got league, like Champions League, League One, leagues. I'm thankful that I've played around the world. I've achieved a lot, and rather than striving for something that's just never going to work for me because of what we just talked about, it's just taking me a bit of time to find peace and be happy with what I've got. And what I've got is incredible. I get up, get my cup of tea, I see my cats, go into the studio, and I make music, and I teach music, and I help people achieve their dreams, and I make a good living from it. And I'm very fortunate for that. However, when you're a musician, when you make music, as you'll know yourself, if you can just make music but you can never hear it in a club environment, it's really like torture. So I decided to try and do 2 or 3 good gigs a year.
So and just play your new music.
And the irony behind it is, because I did do the major retirement, I have quite a lot of leverage. So when these people message me, I'll say, is it going to be busy? Like, because I'm no longer going to go and play to people, like 5 people in a club. Because when you're trying to become a DJ, you don't care, you take any gig.
Yeah. So
the main concern now, is it going to be busy? Is it going to pay me a fair amount? Because at the end of the day, we've got to live. It's our jobs. And because of the fact that I don't do many shows, I'm able to kind of negotiate a fee, which I think is fair. So if I can do 2-3 gigs a year where the clubs are full, and I can express myself through my music, which I've been making in the studio, that's perfect for me.
And that's also enough to fuel the fire to keep on going with making music as well.
That's it. Just literally 2 or 3 gigs a year. One every quarter would be pretty cool. I'd like that. But I mean, I'm playing Luminos there, which is incredible. Playing the Wrong Pre-Party, which is going to be incredible. It's a free event. It's a small club, 300 people. It's going to be absolutely incredible.
And there's something happening in the UK right now, like trends-wise.
What you think is getting
everything's
big?
buzzing.
Do you not think the UK has been a hotbed for trance music for quite a while? Yeah,
100%. I think crowd-wise, it's also one of the best spots in the world right now, because people just go off. I don't know what happened over there.
Yeah.
It's the fast-paced music that's really working again.
What do you think to Scotland? I think Scotland's up there with the
Scotland,
best.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Obviously that's the UK, but Scotland I've always
the north of England and Scotland, definitely.
Yeah. Like up Sheffield, Manchester, places like
clubbing that. Clubbing is back there again.
Yeah, it's good.
People just go to clubs like every day a week.
There's so many shows in England, yeah.
Like Peter Topping, Ben Hamsley, Ben Nicky.
Yeah.
They're killing it.
It's good. I mean, digital society has come back, which is great. Like that used to be like my stomping ground. We used to go there all the time.
Yeah.
And I managed to play the main room there, which was incredible.
I did that once too. That was also a bucket list for me. Yeah.
Oh, sick. My bucket list was because I told you about Ibiza. I did 5 seasons in Ibiza, and I kind of grew up on the dance floor of Amnesia, watching Armin, watching Eddie Halliwell, Ferry Corsten, Paul Oakenfold, and I 5 years later I managed to play the main room, and I opened up before Eddie Halliwell, and I played like a nice prog set, and then I ended after Jock. I mean, that was probably the best moment of my life, playing in
those are the moments, man, that you'll never forget. So what's coming for you in the near future? What are your dreams that you're working for right now?
What are my dreams? My dreams are to just kind of keep doing what I'm doing, being the best shooter that I can possibly be. Like I try and have a real firm moral kind of base. I have a lot of producers that they join the course and then they think that they want to be on the course, but we don't kind of put the effort in. And I could just sit there and not do anything each month, and they'd pay me a fee. But I find it really important to really chase them and try and really push them. Like sometimes people just need, even though they're paying to be on the course, they need to be pushed. So yeah, I just want to be the best shooter I can be. I'd like to carry on building my business, and I feel like I built it to a point now where I can't do anymore unless I took on a clone of myself and took on more clients. It's not possible.
Maybe you could start like a music school if you want to, I guess.
I've tried things like that. I've tried to push out, but I think again sometimes I don't do very well with too much on my plate.
Yeah.
So yeah, my ultimate goal is to keep doing what I'm doing. I've achieved a point where I'm very happy,
and then it's fine.
Keep it stable. Yeah. Look after my mental health. Look after and just be happy with what I've got.
Sometimes we need to remember that we need to do that.
In life, sometimes I feel like personally, like for not in the last few years, but before that, I've always been striving for new things, and sometimes in life you just have to learn to be at peace with what you've got, and you don't need once you've got a certain amount of things, if you've got friends, family, love, a good job and you've got general happiness. You don't need to.
You don't need anything.
Yeah, it's sometimes you just have to learn to be happy with what you've got, and rather than unhappy with what you've not got. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, beautiful, valuable lessons. Where can people sign up for your course?
Well, they can message me on Facebook, or there's the email address. It's tutorials@AdamEllisDJ.com, and I can send you some information.
It's ELLIS.
Yeah, tutorials@AdamEllis. Yeah. The one thing I'd like to say though, which is really important, is that if you listen to this and you're a producer and you're thinking, "Gosh, I want to be a producer, but I can't afford lessons." You do not need lessons. No one ever taught me, and I think it's imperative to remember. You do not need lessons. You can go and achieve your dreams. However, if you're in a fortunate position where you have the disposable income to afford lessons, it might be something that can help you. But please, if you are listening to this and you're a budding producer,
you don't need it.
You don't need it. So don't ever think, "Oh, I'm going to quit making music because I can't afford lessons." That is not true. Persevere, never give up, and just remember,
work hard.
If you don't, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't put the work in. So please do remember that.
There's no instant gratification in becoming a producer, that's for sure.
No, it took me 5 years.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much once again,
Thank
Adam,
you, Ruben.
for
Really appreciate it.
Next time we're going to be back with a new podcast with Artento and Divini Davy Esper. You're going to be here in the studio as their Ada alias. So I'll see you next time for a new State of Trance podcast. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Check all previous episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast portal.